For this video, we're going to try and use samples from one of the Ableton packs. I can't guarantee that we'll end up just using one pack alone, but we'll see where we get to. So we're going to try and use the Chop and Swing library. This is a downloadable pack from Ableton's website. So if we're going to work with the drum loops, the first thing we do is really listen to what's actually in the library. I'm not going to make you listen to everything. I'm going to fast forward to the drum loop that I actually do select. So this is the drum loop we're going to use. It's quite a full sounding loop, so we're going to do some work on it. So let's go over to the sample window. When we're in the sample window, when I'm using the beats algorithm, I tend to use the transient shaping to clean up the drum loop itself and make it less noisy. So now I'm going to look for some other drum loops or patterns to complement this main pattern. I'm going to do some edits in here because I actually don't want to use the whole of the loop. And again, we still do the transient shaping. As you can see, I'm only going to use a small part of this loop, and then I'm also going to use some volume shaping in the clip itself. At the end of this, you can hear a little click. So again, put another fade at the end of that as well. Just tidying up some of the transient points. I kind of don't like the way that some of the cowbell patterns sort of sits with the rest of the drum loop. Because we're using these transient markers, we can easily just remove them and go back if we change our minds. Now, whilst this one may appear somewhat unusable, there's a really nice little drum fill at the end of it. So I'm going to take that bit of the sample and use that for the end of the 4-bar loop here. And again, it's just really just a question of envelope automation in terms of the clip. One of the things that I like to do within the sample window is actually change the clip start or the sample start point and explore what that means in terms of rhythmic variations or differences. You know, the samples that you get, they'll start, here's beat one, let's say. You don't actually need to start the sample there, and you may find more interesting things sort of further on in the sample. The thing is exactly the same sort of transient shaping approach. Okay, so here we've got a hi-hat pattern. For this pattern, we're going to sidechain it to the main drum loop. The goal here is essentially to try and get the hi-hat pattern not to remain at the same dynamic level, but to somehow sort of shift and weave in and out of the loop pattern itself. Looking for bass patterns, especially in loops, presents a lot of challenges. These bass patterns, obviously played on the bass guitar, they are really quite crusty. They also sit in a kind of an R&B-ish kind of blues setting, which is kind of okay, but it also sort of tends to imply some kind of retro thing that we might end up doing. In the end, I spent quite a lot of time fiddling around with this bass sample, the loop, adjusting envelopes, moving stuff around, and in the end I gave up on it and then went down a different rabbit hole. So just to spare you having to listen to everything that I went through, I'm going to fast forward to where it starts to take a better shape. So here I'm looking for more of a single note that's got some body to it so that I can create a little bit of a bounce between the other figures. When notes are really low like this and you're not quite sure what the pitch information might be, I tend to transpose them up an octave so you can hear it a little bit more clearly. Now really it's just a kind of a brute force thing of basically just moving it around by semitones or tones and trying to find the point where that bass tone sort of works with the others. Once I think I've got the right pitch for this bass note, I transpose it back down into the lower octave so that it becomes a bass again. copied the bass parts over for the 4 bars, in my head I sort of think that there's a little bit of a descending line that can be done here. So this is what I'm going to try and do now. So the problem with using this bass part is it's actually got 2 notes in the riff, and that's a problem when you sort of encounter some of the harmonic parts where maybe you just need a semitone movement. So now, of course, in the envelope window, automating the pitch transposition. Okay, so that seems to be working well enough for the time being. So I'm going to sidechain the bass patterns against the main loop. So now we're going to be looking for some one-shots to kind of fill out this track now, because we've got some drums and bass. What I'm going to do here is press the command key R so that it reverses the sample, and then I'm going to create a volume envelope and then use this as a kind of a dynamic riser as the pattern loops back around. As with the other pitched samples, it's really a question of trial and error to sort of find the right kind of transposition for the sample. There are lots of different places that it could go, but it really sort of depends on your requirements. Feel like I need a slightly stronger underpinning for the chord progression. Now, there aren't really enough of these kinds of Rhodes type piano chords in that library, and I'll be using these. The same methods will be used, sort of moving them around until we sort of identify the right kind of pitch relationships and the right sorts of algorithms and so on, and then basically construct a keyboard parts out of these samples. Now what I want to do here is find a chord that is a tone lower than the C minor. So the tone lower than the C minor is a B flat. There isn't a B flat, but I'm going to use the B6. And the reason why I'm going to use the B6 is I only need to transpose it down 1 semitone. But also that the 6th chord, when you play a minor chord like C minor followed by B flat 6 helps to create a greater connection between the two chords rather than actually just go C minor to B flat. Okay, so we're back to the bass part. I still think the bass part isn't right. And even though we've got all of those different bass lines, there still feels to be something of a hole that's in there, especially since I put these Rhodes parts in there. So basically, my reliable libraries, those ones from eLab to do with things like Smoker's Delight and so on and so forth, full of fantastic kind of one-shots or sort of little riffs and so on. So worth kind of looking at that. Again, we've got similar techniques, changing the algorithm. I mean, tones might work well in this place rather than the Complex Pro. And then it's a question of transposing it and moving it around. Volume or clip-based automation to essentially remove that note or transpose it down. So here, just trying to dirty up the vocal sample, give it a bit more of a vintage feel. Okay, here, just aiming to build out bar 4, give it a little bit more of a dynamic lift. Okay, sometimes when you hear this sound, it's always worth trying a different algorithm, as this will sometimes cure the problem, as well as repositioning the transposition curve here in the envelope, moving it slightly in advance of where the second note takes place. I like to use utility for volume fades. Any of the fades that I don't want to actually put into the clip window, I can use utility. And it's so much better than actually trying to automate the channel volume. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed that. Please remember to like and subscribe. You can download the project. The details are in the description below. Let me know what you think. As far as I'm concerned, this track probably didn't go the way that I would have liked it to have gone. Given that it is so retro, we could spend a little bit more time sort of making it more vintage and then using it as a track that we would resample and then incorporate into another production. Even if your experiments don't turn out quite the way you expect them to, you can actually reuse your materials and then use them in other projects. So do keep that in mind. Bye for now.